Tell him he can go lay down over there in the corner. Okay. So, as I said, we live in a time where a lot of children associate, constructive criticism with disrespect and a lack of love. Because I criticize you or because I reprimand you for something doesn't mean that I don't love you. And we live in a time where a lot of times boys, they kind of, especially with their fathers, they usually associate one with the other. And as I said, they've now begin to use the block button and the delete button on social media as a real life method to dealing with interpersonal conflict. So when they don't like someone, they block you. Or when someone disagrees with you, right? You have some people who on social media, they have very poor interpersonal skills. The moment someone disagrees with them, the moment someone says something that they don't agree with or they don't like, they block you or they delete you. All right. And sometimes parents believe that they can begin to use this same method with their parents. There was an incident that highlights the combination of love and law during the time of the Prophet ﷺ with one of the youth of the companions that he was very fond of. On the authority of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said, إن قريش أهمهم شأن المرأة المخزومية التي سرقت فقالوا من يكلم فيها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قالوا من يجترئ عليه إلا أسامة بن زيد حب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said that the Sahaba who were from Medina, from Mecca, Quraysh, they were worried about the case of the woman from the tribe of Makhzum who stole. This was the strange case of the woman from Makhzum who stole. They were worried about this because this woman came from the tribe of Makhzum, which was one of the higher, upper tier tribes of Meccan society. And they were worried that the Prophet ﷺ, when he got word that this woman stole, that he was going to cut her hand off. And, to do that would be be considered a disrespect to that particular tribe's status. So they were worried. So the Sahaba began to ask, who can talk to the Prophet ﷺ about this? Who can go speak on this woman's behalf to the Prophet ﷺ? So one of the Sahaba, they said, "Man yajtari'u alayhi illa Usama ibn Zayd." No one has the gall or the ability to go and speak to the Prophet ﷺ about this except Usama ibn Zayd, one of the youth that the Prophet ﷺ loved. He was given the nickname Hib Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the beloved of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And everyone in Mecca knew this. Everyone knew how much the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved Usama ibn Zayd. But as we're going to see, that just because you love your child does not mean that they are exempt from reprimand. It does not mean that they are exempt from being criticized or to be constructively criticized. One does not mean, or one does not exclude the other. That because I criticize you does not mean that I don't love you. The love remains, although you have to be chastised. فكلمه أسامة فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أتشفع يا أسامة في حد من حدود الله. The Sahaba, they encouraged Usama to go talk to the Prophet ﷺ, to go speak to him on behalf of this woman who stole. They believed that because Usama had a great position with the Prophet ﷺ, that he would excuse her. He would excuse her. So Usama went and spoke to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet became angry, became upset, and he said, Ya Usama, atashfa' fi haddin min hududillah. Usama, are you going to intercede in one of the capital punishments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You can't come and talk to me. Don't use your position with me to come and speak on behalf of this woman. He said, Waymullah, law anna Fatima bintu Muhammad saraqat laqata'tu yadaha. He said, I swear by Allah that if Fatima, my own daughter, was to steal, I would cut her hand off. I would cut her hand off. There's no speaking to me on behalf of that, Usama. So one doesn't mean that the Prophet ﷺ loved Usama any less. Doesn't mean that he loved him any less. But it also meant that because I love you, does not mean I'm going to excuse you or to allow you to get away with certain things. Not going to happen. In another incident with the same companion, Usama ibn Zayd, he said, بعثنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إلى حرقة فصبحنا القوم فهزمناهم ولحقت أنا ورجل من الأنصار رجل منهم فلما غشينا عليه قال لا إله إلا الله فكف الأنصار عنه وطعنته برمحي حتى قتلته. That Usama ibn Zayd, he said that the Prophet ﷺ sent us on a war expedition. He said, so morning came and we attacked this this group of people. فَهَزَمْنَاهُمْ and we were victorious over them. And they begin to flee, they begin to retreat. He said, وَلَحِقْتُ أَنَا وَرَجُلٌ مِّنَ الْأَنصَارِ رَجُلًا مِّنْهُمْ. He said, me and a companion of mine from the Ansar, we cornered a man. We cornered him. Guys trying to run, but we cornered him. He said, فَلَمَّا غَشِينَا عَلَيْهِ and then when we surrounded him and we were getting ready to attack him, he said, لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. He took his shahada. لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Usama said, فَكَفَّ عَنْهُ الْأَنصَارِ. The Ansari, my companion from the Ansar, the moment he said La ilaha illallah, he backed away from him. He backed away from him. He left him alone. He said, as for myself, he said, فَتَعَنْتُهُ بِرُمْحِ حَتَّى قَتَلْتُهُ. He said, I continued to stab him with my spear until I killed him. This is after he said La ilaha illallah. And this also shows us, as we'll see at the end of the hadith, the conversation between Usama and the Prophet ﷺ, that you can have good intentions and do the wrong action. Some people do the wrong thing and they said, well, I had good intentions. Yeah, well, you could have good intentions and still do the wrong thing. Having good intentions doesn't justify the act, right? Just because you had good intentions doesn't mean that you are justified for doing the act. You have to have good intention and the act has to be good. Al-ikhlas was sawab. You have to have ikhlas, sincerity, and you have to be musib. You have to actually do a right act. The act has to be done correctly. But you can't have good intention and then do whatever you want to do and then turn around and say, well, I had good intentions. Well, you still don't get, compensated because of your good intention. So Usama radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, I continued to stab the man until I killed him. He said, فَلَمَّا قَدِمْنَا الْمَدِينَةِ بلغ النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يا أسامة قتلته بعد أن قال لا إله إلا الله. قال أسامة فقلت كان متعوذا يا رسول الله فما زال يكررها حتى تمنيت أني لم أكن أسلمت قبل ذلك اليوم. Usama said that when we got back to Medina and word reached the Prophet ﷺ that I did this, that I killed the man, after he said La ilaha illallah. The Prophet ﷺ came to Usama, and this is out of love. This is love. There has to be love and law. We can't, one does not invalidate the other. They go hand in hand. Just because I criticize you, just because I chastise you, just because I reprimand you, doesn't mean I don't love you. But as a man, as a boy, you have to be able to receive reprimand. You have to be able to receive chastisement. Some of us, our skin is so weak, the moment one of our parents, chastise us or reprimand us for something, we crack, we fold under pressure. as if there's no more good in us, right? People who are, can't handle constructive criticism, every time you critique them about something, they throw their entire identity out of the window. Well, I guess I'm a bad person. No, it's not that you're a bad person. It's not that you're a bad person. But in this particular instance, you need to be corrected. You're not a bad person. Don't judge yourself by your last good deed or your last bad deed. Your whole identity is not based upon your last good deed or your last bad deed. Your identity, you are who you are. Flaws and all, that's who you are. But don't judge yourself or don't identify yourself through the last good thing you did or the last bad thing you did. Or as the statement goes, don't live in someone's praises so you die in their criticism. You accept the person's praises of you so much that the moment the person criticizes you, it has so much impact on you, so has such an effect on you, it's almost like you die. Like you don't even exist anymore because the person criticized you. And this is what has led many students of knowledge, many imams, many leaders in the Muslim community to separate and, have a lack of cohesion and cooperation with one another. Believe it or not, this is one of the main reasons. It's one of the main reasons that certain imams distance themselves from other people because they can't handle criticism. Because the moment someone says to them, you said this or you said that, they get up in arms. They have to protect and defend what they believe is their entire identity. You identify yourself through your position as an imam or your position as a student of knowledge. That's not who you are. That's a fraction of who and what you are. But, we take criticism so hard, man. We take it very hard. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he found out Usama did this, he went to Usama and he said to him, Usama, أَقَتَلْتُهُ بَعْدًا قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Usama, did you kill the man after he said La ilaha illallah? And Usama said, Ya Rasulullah, kana muta'awwidhan. He only said La ilaha illallah because he was hiding behind Islam. He was seeking refuge in Islam. He knew that I was getting ready to kill him, so he said La ilaha illallah. And another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he asked Usama, Ashaqaqta an sadrihi? Did you open his heart to see whether he really believed? Who are you now to judge someone's intention? And although Usama meant well, obviously he meant well. He didn't do it out of treachery. He didn't do it out of malice. He was fighting an enemy. He was sent, as a soldier to go and fight. So quite naturally, he did what he thought was the right thing to do. But this shows us that you can have the right intention and do the wrong action. The Prophet ﷺ's reprimand of Usama is an indication that what he did was wrong. That after the man said, La ilaha illallah, you should have left him. You should have not went any further. Just like the man from the Ansar, he said, my companion from the Ansar, the moment he said, La ilaha illallah, he backed away from him. He backed away from him. He didn't proceed any further. And that's exactly what Usama should have done. But instead, having a good intention but doing the wrong action, he said, I continued to stab him until I killed him. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him, أَقَتَلْتُهُ بَعْدَ أَنْ قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Did you kill him after he said La ilaha illallah? Did you kill him after he said La ilaha illallah? And Usama said, O Messenger of Allah, he only said it because he was in fear that I was getting ready to kill him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, هَلْ شَقَقْتَ عَنْ صَدْرِهِ. Did you open his chest to see whether he really believed? Did you open his chest to see whether he really believed? So this is a conversation between a father-like figure, the Prophet ﷺ, and a son to him, Usama ibn Zayd, someone that he loved very dearly, someone who the Sahaba sent Usama to go and intercede on behalf of a woman who stole because they realized no one had the ability to do that more than Usama. But along with that, along with the fact that the Prophet ﷺ loved him, it did not persuade the Prophet ﷺ one bit from admonishing him and reprimanding him when he needed to be reprimanded. And in this day and time, with many of our boys, they need to have thick enough skin to understand that it's okay to be criticized for what you do. It's okay. And that does not mean that you are not a good person. That does not mean you should not judge your entire character, your entire identity based off of one mistake that you made. We're not judged on our mistakes, but we're judged on how we bounce back from our mistakes. And many children, many young boys in this day and time can't handle criticism. There was a time when I was growing up, if we were walking outside and we had our pants sagging, your neighbor could tell you, boy, pull your pants up. Boy, pull your pants up. And you would pull your pants out with respect and not say anything back. Today, as an adult, you're almost afraid to tell one of these young boys to pull their pants up because they don't function with the level of respect for adults. They don't function with that level of respect. And that child may take your criticism of them, rightfully so, your criticism of them wearing their pants beneath their, showing their underwears. They may take that criticism as an attack on their identity. They identify themselves through such superficial things that you tell him, hey, young man, pull your pants up. He may turn around and say, F you. He may turn around and say something disrespectful to you, right? Because you just now came for his character. They can't, you understand what I'm saying? Like, they can't handle that type of criticism today. You tell a child, I'm telling you as a teacher, as an educator, you tell the child, you grade the paper, and you put like a small note on the paper. Teachers usually put notes. I do. When I grade the paper, I'll put a little note on there. Next time, let's try a little harder. Right? And then you give the paper to the child comes back and says, why did you give me a 76? You're saying, that's what you deserved. You got this wrong. You got that wrong. You got that wrong. It seems like you didn't even try. Come on, you can do better than that. And they walk away literally in tears. They're about to cry because they got a 76. They're about to cry because they have an 80. And because you told them that they could do better. Right? And they'll run, sometimes they'll go to the principal and complain about you as the teacher. And I'm sure those in higher levels of education in the universities and colleges, they can bear witness to that. That because you give a child what they deserved of a grade, the child is going to take it to higher levels and take it to the principal, take it to the dean, and, possibly, get you transferred or get you fired or get you reprimanded because they can't simply handle constructive criticism. SubhanAllah. Because they can't handle constructive criticism. This is the time that we're living in. And any boy that cannot handle constructive criticism is going to eventually have an emotional breakdown. He is driven by emotion. And as boys, we should not be driven by emotion. Right? Yeah, and the parents get upset too. Absolutely. Parent comes to the school chastising you as the teacher. Right? The same parent, if you gave the parent the same math equation, the parent themselves couldn't even answer it. But they're going to come to school and admonish you as the parent, as the teacher. They're going to come to school and admonish you and reprimand you, sometimes right in front of the child. Yeah, man, this is sad. It's a real sad situation, man. That even in academia, when, constructive criticism is supposed to make you a better student, right? Even in academia, you have children who cannot handle constructive criticism because the criticism is somehow invalidating of their individuality, So the Prophet ﷺ, Usama said the Prophet ﷺ kept repeating the statement, أَقَتَلْتُهُ بَعْدَ أَنْ قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Did you kill him after he said La ilaha illallah? He kept repeating it over and over until Usama said, I wish I had not accepted Islam until that very day. I wish I had not accepted Islam until that very day. Meaning, so that action would be erased. Right? No, it's not that they misconstrue constructive criticism or nasiha with their own opinions. It's the way they receive it. They receive constructive criticism or nasiha or advice. They receive it as if it's somehow invalidating of their entire being. Because I criticized you about something. And then we'll use other ways to circumvent it. We'll say, well, it was the way you said it. Okay, the way I said it. Is what I said correct? Okay, cool. I take responsibility for the way that I said it. But you cannot circumvent what was said. What was said was spot on about you. I will use all different ways. Don't judge me. I don't like the way you said it, your approach. And we'll use so many different ways to circumvent the advice, circumvent the constructive criticism, simply because, and all of those things are just kind of watering it down, making it easy, for us to, to receive. That's how we make ourselves receive it, as we'll say, well, I don't like the way you said it. Well, you don't have to approach me like that. You don't have to say it like that. And it's just like, okay. So basically what you're saying is I shouldn't have said it to begin with. Because if I wouldn't have said it, you would be okay. And this is the time that we're living in. So Usama and it provided, yes, saying things a certain way. I have a way of doing that, of sometimes saying things and it comes off harsh. Simply, sometimes it's just the way that I talk. All right. And some people receive information different than others. And that's to be considered. But we can't get around the constructive criticism. If the criticism was on point, we have to teach our boys to accept it. You are not above criticism. No one is. No one is above being criticized. No one is above advice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya ayyuhan nabi ittaqillah. O Prophet, fear Allah. This is Allah. This is God saying to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, O Prophet, fear Allah. And if Allah can tell the Prophet to fear Allah, then no one beneath the Prophet is above criticism. This is Allah telling the Prophet ﷺ, ittaqillah, fear Allah. And if the Prophet ﷺ can be admonished by God, then anyone from amongst us can be admonished, even though that admonition is not from God initially, that if it's coming from the Quran and Sunnah, then of course it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not above being advised. You're not above being criticized. Especially if you do it in a realm that accepts criticism. If you do something in public and someone says something to you, who are you to say the person doesn't have a right to say? All right, I'll give you an example. We post something on our Facebook page, right? Something inappropriate. Someone comes along, however they saw it. I don't know, maybe someone shared it with them or whatever the case may be. On social media, it's a small world. All right, you post something on your wall, you post something on your Facebook page, you post something on your Instagram page, somebody shares it with somebody shares it with somebody, and somehow it ends up in your feed. You see it, you go back and you send the person a message, and you say, brother or sister, this is not appropriate, you should take it down. What do we say? What are you doing on my page? Right? You have no business on my page. It's like totally overlooking the fact that what the person said to you was correct, right? And we'll use other ways to circumvent it. We'll say, well, why are you on my page? You don't have to be on my page. Or we'll block the person or delete the person, right? Just so we don't have to accept the criticism that the person is giving us. This is the time that we live in. No, Jazakallah khair for that advice. Jazakallah khair for, even though you don't have to necessarily take it, maybe you see it a different way. But at the same token, you welcome the advice. You welcome the criticism. No, we can't do that. So there was a combination of love and law. And if one of our boys, our sons, we love them, if they transgress, it doesn't mean that our love for them, because we admonish them, because we advise them, because we criticize them to make them better, it doesn't mean that we don't love them. It doesn't mean that we don't love them. The Prophet ﷺ, another companion that he loved, Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Mu'adh ibn Jabal was, as we said before, the Prophet ﷺ said, أَعْلَمُ أُمَّتِي بِالْحَلَالِ وَالْحَرَامِ. Mu'adh ibn Jabal. that the most knowledgeable person of my ummah, of the halal and the haram, is Mu'adh ibn Jabal. And another narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Mu'adh, inni la uhibbuk. Mu'adh, I love you. I love you. فقال معاذ وأنا أحبك كذلك يا رسول الله. Right? He said, O Messenger of Allah, I love you too. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تدعن في دبر كل صلاة أن تقول اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. He said, O Mu'adh, I love you. I love you. Wallahi, I love you. This is the Prophet ﷺ telling Mu'adh, a young person, a young boy in the community of the Prophet ﷺ, telling him, I love him. He said, Ya Mu'adh, inni wallahi la uhibbuk. He said, O Mu'adh, I swear by Allah, I love you. He said, but don't forget to say at the end of every salah, O Allah, assist me in remembering you, being grateful to you, and perfecting my worship to you. So this is the Prophet ﷺ affirming his love for Mu'adh. He said, Ya Mu'adh, inni la uhibbuk. Wallahi uhibbuk. I love you. But in a situation where Mu'adh went to go lead the salah, and he recited Surah Al-Baqarah in Salatul Isha, and the man left the rank, and then he went to the Prophet ﷺ to complain. When the Prophet ﷺ came to Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he said to him, Afattanun anta ya Mu'adh? He said, Mu'adh, are you being a fitna for people? Are you making the religion difficult for people? He's reprimanding him. But we see in another narration, he told Mu'adh, I love you. Inni la uhibbuka fillah. I love you for the sake of Allah, Mu'adh. But that doesn't mean that because I love you, I'm not going to reprimand you. Because when the man brought to the Prophet ﷺ's attention that Mu'adh ibn Jabal was leading Salatul Isha and reciting Surah Al-Baqarah, the Prophet ﷺ, he admonished Mu'adh. He said, Ya Mu'adh, fattanun anta. Are you making the religion difficult for people, Mu'adh? And his face became red. He was upset. He said, Fattanun anta ya Mu'adh. Are you being a fitna for people, ya Mu'adh? He said, when you stand and lead people in the salat, فَخَفِّفْ عَنْهُمْ, then make the prayer easy for people to manage. Make it easy for people to pray. Don't stand up and recite the longest chapter in the Quran when you're leading people in Salatul Isha. People are tired, they're elderly, and there are other people that have other things to take care of. So, one does not mean the other. One does not mean the opposite of the other. Because I reprimand you, because I chastise you, because I, critically critique you, doesn't mean I don't love you. As a matter of fact, as the sister said, is a sign that I do love you. Because if I didn't love you, I wouldn't say anything to you. I would just let you continuously be reckless and eventually destroy yourself. But if I say something to you, then that is an indication that I love you. And our boys need to understand that. For men, coming from a man, a woman, chastising her son is something totally different. When it comes from a man, it comes off very harsh and it comes off very heavy because a boy always wants to seem, as if he measures up in his father's eyes, right? A boy always wants to seem like he measures up in his father's eyes. And to have his father criticize him or critique him for something that he did wrong, sometimes it would make a boy shrink and feel like, well, I'm never going to measure up in his eyes. I'm never going to amount to anything. He always criticizes me. You have to teach your boys to be open to constructive criticism. Wallah al-azim, if we do not train our boys to have thicker skin and to be open to chastisement and criticism, they are going to have an emotional breakdown. The moment they are in a relationship with a woman and the woman criticizes him, if he can't handle criticism from a man, what in the world do you think he's going to do when his wife criticizes him? You follow me? If we're raising boys with very thin skin that crumble underneath any criticism, what are they going to do when they get married and they're in a relationship with a woman and a woman is criticizing him for some of his decisions? And as men, if you've been in a relationship long enough, your wife has criticized you. You have been criticized before. Why did you do that? Why are you spending money on that and this needs to be taken care of? Why are you doing that when this needs to be done? You know what? You kill me, the decisions that you make sometime, and you do this, and that's criticism coming from your wife, the closest person to you. And the closer a person is to you, the more difficult the criticism is to accept. Wallahi. Because you tend to think that because the person loves you, they're supposed to let you get away with it. Because the person loves you, they're not supposed to say anything to you about it. Because a person loves you, they're supposed to let you get away with it. No, that's not what love is. There has to be love and law. And if you transgress a law, then you should be reprimanded. You should be chastised. You should be criticized. And we should be man enough to accept the criticism and say, you know what, honey, you're absolutely right. It's crazy for me to go buy, a two-door car, go buy a two-door, right? And we have 5 kids. That's very selfish of me, right? Very selfish, right? So, we have to train our boys to be welcoming of criticism. And our daughters as well, because our daughters, sometimes they identify themselves through the good, through the service. That's women, classic women. They identify themselves through their service to their spouses. And the moment the husband suggests that she could do something different, right? Then she wants to make it seem like, oh, you don't love me anymore. Me telling you that you can do this a different way, or can you do this, doesn't mean that I don't love you. That means that I do love you, and I am encouraging you, to do better. All right. Men and women in these relationships today, man, subhanAllah, everyone is above criticism. Everyone should just be left to kind of just do them. In the age of victim, nothing is anyone's fault. That quote alone is so powerful and is so relevant in the time that we're living in today. That in the age of victim, nothing is anyone's fault. So therefore, no one should be criticized for anything. No one should be reprimanded for anything. If a woman, you come home from work and the dirty clothes are still piling up in the dirty clothes basket, you're not supposed to say anything. You're supposed to just be patient and wait until she decides, right, to do the laundry. Right? Clothes are just piling up, overflowing in the laundry basket. And you're, as a man, are not supposed to say absolutely anything. MashaAllah. And the moment you say, honey, when are you going to wash the clothes? I'm taking care of your children. I cook. I clean. Why can't you just, let me do this at my own? It's like, but the clothes are in the room. They're falling over on the floor. I'm not supposed to say anything. This is our bedroom, or this is our bathroom, wherever your dirty clothes hamper is. It's like I'm not supposed. The reminder benefits the believer. The reminder benefits the believer. I'm just reminding you. The clothes are overflowing on the laundry basket. I'm just reminding you. You don't have to go on a tangent, judging your whole womanhood because I reminded you that the laundry needs to be done. You understand? This is what goes on in relationships right now. It's sick, man. It is a sick environment that we live in where everyone is so freaking narcissistic and so has such self-grandiose ideas about themselves that no one, everyone is above criticism. Everyone is above criticism, reprimand. Nobody can say anything to anybody. In the age of victim, nothing is anyone's fault. Nothing is anyone's fault. So you're not supposed to say anything, right? Laundry flowing over on the floor, dirty clothes. You're walking past this as you're coming home from work. You're like, honey, when are you going to wash the clothes? I'll get around to it. Like that. Like, am I not a good enough wife? Like, don't I cook for you? Don't I clean? It's like, why do you have to go into this whole, why does the defense have to go up simply because I asked you to, when were you going to, or do you need help? You know what I mean? Like, why are you now judging your whole, persona as a wife because of one simple criticism? Grandiose delusions of grandeur, right? This is what narcissism is, and we live in a very narcissistic environment. Narcissism permeates the environment that we live in. Nothing in the age of victim, nothing is anyone's fault. Yeah. So as you can see with the Prophet ﷺ in his relationship with Usama ibn Zayd, as well as his relationship with Mu'adh ibn Jabal, there was a love there. But the Prophet ﷺ's love for them didn't stop him from reprimanding them. Didn't stop him from chastising them when they needed to be chastised. Usama ibn Zayd was known as Hibb Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most beloved of the youth of the Sahaba to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and still in all, he chastised Usama when he killed a man for reasons that he should have allowed him to live. You killed him after the man said La ilaha illallah. The second example is the example of him and Mu'adh. He told Mu'adh, "Oh Mu'adh, I swear by Allah, I love you." Said it very clearly to him. But when Mu'adh stood to lead the people in Salah and was reciting Surah Al-Baqarah, the Prophet ﷺ had to chastise him for that. You don't do that. He said, when you stand to lead people in prayer, understand that behind you, there are the elderly, there are the sick, and there are people, dhu hajjah, people who have other things to do. All right? There shouldn't be any criticism. There should be encouragism. No. We can clearly see you're saying that from your perspective, but I'm giving you examples from the Prophet ﷺ's relationship with the young men in his community, that there was criticism. Sometimes they do things that are blatantly wrong, and they have to be chastised for it. They have to be reprimanded for it. We're not talking about a simple mistake where you should be encouraged to do. And of course, every criticism, that's why it's constructive criticism. Constructive criticism has an undertone of encouragement, right? Constructive criticism. I'm not talking about criticism that is designed to break a person down and make a person feel like they don't amount to anything. That's not encouraged. That's not criticism. We're not talking about destructive criticism. We're talking about constructive criticism. There's a difference between the two. All right? Constructive criticism has an undertone of encouragement. Destructive criticism is designed to break you down and make you feel like you don't amount to anything and you will never amount to anything. Right? So that still didn't stop the Prophet ﷺ from reprimanding him. One does not cancel out the other. However, when you understand, right, you understand that if there's a foundation of love, then the constructive criticism should be viewed through the lens of the love that you have for the person. All right? But if there's not an undertone of love between the father and the son, right, all there is destructive criticism, right? All there is, the relationship, the entire relationship between the father and the son is just, destructive criticism. Then the criticism is not going to be accepted well. It's not going to be received well, right? Sheikh Hassan, if you want to go, you can go, Sheikh. I'm going to go. I have to one more, inshallah. All right, so that's number 5. That's number 4. Number 5. Boys need space. They need space, or they need a zone wherein they can implement what they are learning in life. We do all of these, all this training of our boys, teaching them Quran, but then we don't let them lead the salah in the home. I'm amazed to find, all of these, people learning Quran and all of these, different, you go into the different masajid, you see these halaqah, tahfidh the Quran, and then the imam comes out and leads the salah. For all 5 salah, all 5 prayers, the imam leads the salah. If we have our children memorizing the Quran, when are they ever going to practice that? They spend their entire lives memorizing Quran. When in the world are they going to have the space to practice that? Brothers and sisters have been sitting in lectures for years, decades. When are you ever going to be in the position to utilize and to teach? To teach. You have brothers and sisters that I know personally, brothers and sisters that I know personally, that if they were to grab a microphone and begin giving a lecture, they would be more than capable of doing that. They have sat throughout the years, the 20 years that I've been Muslim, I have been seeing some of the same faces, brothers and sisters who have been sitting in lectures after lecture, conference after conference, seminar after seminar, workshop after workshop, Jumu'ah after Jumu'ah, and they're more than capable of teaching and educating, but they never have the platform to do so. Boys need a space or a zone wherein they can implement what they are learning in life. They don't need to be put in a box wherein their individuality will be suppressed. This makes them feel useful and relevant. When a person is learning something and now they have the ability or the space wherein they can practice that, they feel useful, they feel relevant. Many of our children, they spend their entire lives in the Islamic community only to be put on the back burner, only to be told that they are immature, they're not ready. All right, we keep talking about passing the baton. We keep talking about passing it on to the next generation, when the fact of the matter is that many imams, we're going to have to pry the baton from their hands at their demise. That's just the bottom line. Many imams, we talk this whole pass the baton, we talk this whole idea of passing it on to the next generation, and the fact of the matter is that it's just kalam. It's just kalam. It's just kalam. It's just something that we say, it sounds good, it makes us look humble, but the fact of the matter is that many of us are going to hold the positions that we have until we are dead and gone. Bottom line. And then we'll constantly keep saying, I don't feel the person is ready. Who are you to decide when the person is ready? Who are you to decide that the person is not ready? You're going to see immaturities all the way up. I mean, you're going to see immaturities for your whole entire life. I'm sure if my mother was alive today, she would still see some immaturities in me. But at the same token, those immaturities, despite the fact that the person, sometimes we have to be ready. There is no other choice but to be ready. We can say all day long, this person is not ready. I don't think this person is ready. But you would never know when the person is ready until that person steps into that position. Many of us were not ready to be parents at the time we became parents. But, here we are, parenting. Many of us were not ready to be married. And when we stepped into the institution of marriage, we had to learn how to swim or sink. It's the bottom line. You're going to learn how to swim or sink. Many of us wasn't ready. We weren't ready for marriage. Many of us would not be married right now if we were not Muslim. Marriage would have been the furthest thing from our minds. But we got married, we became Muslim. We realized in order to have a relationship with someone in a manner that is pleasing to God, we had to get married. We had to get married. So we got married by default. Many of us right now are married by default. Make no mistake about that. Because if we were not married and we had an option to be with the person and not be sinful, right, we would not have opted to be married. We're only married, many of us in Islam, we're married right now by default. That marriage is the only relationship that Islam will acknowledge. You understand? If there was a such thing as boyfriend and girlfriend relationship in Islam, many of us would still be boyfriend and girlfriends because we would have saw ourselves as not ready for marriage. But we got married because marriage is the default button in Islam. You have to get married. Were we ready for marriage? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We were not ready for marriage. But we stepped into the institution of marriage and we either sank or we learned how to swim. Right? We sank, we got divorced, we moved on to another relationship, got divorced, moved on to another relationship, got divorced, until we figured it out. We figured it out. I can't keep going through this divorce thing. So at some point, I need to figure this out. Because I can't keep handling divorce after divorce after divorce. But I also don't want to commit adultery or fornication. So I have to learn how to swim in this sea that we call the institution of marriage. So this whole idea of not being ready, I'm sorry, I don't necessarily agree with that. But when you give young boys a space where they can practice what they're learning, it makes them feel useful and it makes them feel relevant. Many of our children in the Islamic community right now don't feel useful and they don't feel relevant. And they have all of the skills that are necessary to teach and educate and be, effective in their communities. But they don't have the space to do so. Facts, they don't have the space to do so. And they feel useful. So what they end up doing is investing their time and their energy and their skill set in other organizations. So when our children go to college and universities, they get involved in all types of organizations, sometimes organizations that are the antithesis to their faith system, which is Islam, because they don't feel useful or relevant in their own Islamic community. Because we have been so selfish as to not relinquish to them the space. This masjid, this is our children's space. This is their space. We bring them here to pray. We bring them here to get educated. And then they can't even, take advantage of the space that we have created for them to teach and educate and be useful. Ibn Umar, radiallahu anhu, another youth from the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Kuntu 'inda an-nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فقال إن من الشجر شجرة لا يسقط ورقها مثل المسلم وفي رواية مثل المؤمن فحدثوني ما هي." Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu was a young kid. This is Umar's son. He said, one day I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while he was with some of the elders from the Sahaba. This is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taking Abdullah ibn Umar, and he's around men. You understand? This is what I said from the very beginning. Boys learn how to be men by being around men. If your boy spends time with boys all the time, when does he learn how to mature? When does he learn how to mature? My son knows that I take them places, and when they start acting immature, I'm like, yo, listen, I'll take you home to your mother. You're out with men now. Don't act immature. Fall back, watch how men interact, and act accordingly. You're not around your mother. You're not around your aunts. You're around men now. Act like a man. Begin to look at how I'm interacting with my peers. I go out, go out to lunch, go out to breakfast. After Fajr, me and the brothers, we go out to breakfast. I take one of my kids with me. All right, you're around men. Act accordingly. Don't start with the complaining and the whining and the stuff that you do around your mother. That's the stuff you do around your mother, and she caters to that. Mom, I'm hungry. Ummi, I'm hungry. No, I don't do that around me. We're on our way to the restaurant. Why would you say I'm hungry? We're on our way to go eat. Relax. Be patient. These are the things that boys learn when they're around men. It's not an insensitivity, but when boys are around their mothers, they have this needy nature that comes out. Mom, I'm hungry. Ummi, I'm hungry. Can I have this? Can I have that? And the mom, you kind of cater to that. When you're around men, you want the boy to exercise patience. You want the boy to exercise discipline. You want the boy to exercise, being able to adapt to your environment. That's what part of being a man is, adapting to your environment. All right? This is what happens. This is part of being a man. So, as I said before, boys need role models. They need to be around men. They need to be around men. And the sad thing about it is that sometimes women who are single mothers, they don't have that option. The father's not in the picture for whatever reason, and there's no other man for the boy to be around. So sometimes, unfortunately, what ends up happening is the woman ends up playing the role of the man. So she's his mother, she's his father, she's all of these things. And that's not her place. That's not the place. That's not the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her. But by default, she has to be that. And sometimes she has to be that at the expense of her own happiness. Because while the mother is acting like the father because there's no father around, she begins to adopt this masculine energy, acting like a man, right? And then when it's time for her to be with a man, the man is turned off because he sees certain qualities about the woman, not realizing that the woman only acted like that or only began to adopt these qualities because there was no man in the home, and she had to be the man, she had to be the husband for her children. You know, it's a sad cycle of behavior. It's a sad cycle of behavior. So the man is not around, right? The man is not around. So the woman ends up having to be his mother and his father. So she begins to do things with her boys that a man would usually do with the boys. So she's going outside, she's throwing the football with her son, right? Because the son doesn't have anybody else to play with. She's, wrestling or playing in the home with her son. She's adopting these, masculine, behaviors because she's trying to teach her boy how to be a man, even though she's not a man. And then on top of all of that, when it's time for her to be in a relationship with a man, the man notices certain masculine qualities about the woman, and is turned off. You understand? I'm sure if the man was not available, if the man was not in the home, you had to be his mother, his father, his grandmother, his grandfather. You had to be his teacher, right? You had to be everything. You had to be everything by default. And, and I'm sorry on behalf of, all of the, deadbeat dads and fathers, I apologize. I apologize, unfortunately, but you got to do what you got to do. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. Absolutely. Yes, she's so used to being the head of the household. When it's time for her to let a real man lead, she can't. She can't. She can't. And she didn't, it's not something she signed up for. When she had the child with the man, she didn't say, I'm going to raise this kid by myself. You understand? She had the child with the man believing that the man was actually going to be there in the child's life. And it just so happens that after the child was born, for some reason, one reason or another, the father decided to disappear, and the woman had to end up being the mother and the father. And she's the mother and the father at the expense of her own happiness, because when it's time for her to let a real man come into her life and lead her, she can't do it. It's a sad state of affairs. Nonetheless, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while he was with some of the elders. He's with the elders. And Abdullah ibn Umar is with them. He said, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that indeed there's a tree from amongst the trees that its leaves do not fall, and it resembles the believer. Its fruit produces all the time, and it resembles the believer. فَحَدِّثُونِي مَا هِيَ. Someone tell me what tree this is. It's the Prophet ﷺ throwing a question out there to his companions. He said that from amongst the trees, there's a tree whose leaves does not fall, and it produces its fruit all the time. It resembles the believer. What type of tree is this? So Abdullah ibn Umar, he's narrating this. He said, فَوَقَعَ فِي نَفْسِي أَنَّهَا نَخْلَةٌ فَاسْتَحْيَيْتُ وَوَقَعَ فِي النَّاسِ فِي الشَّجَرَةِ الْبَوَادِي. Abdullah ibn Umar said that I thought to myself, this tree is the date palm tree. He said, but I was too shy to say anything. I was too shy to say anything. I'm a kid. I'm surrounded by all of these adults, all of these men, and I'm afraid to say anything, but I knew that it was the date palm tree. It was a date palm tree. And so some of the Sahaba began to say that it was this type of tree, that type of tree. And Abdullah ibn Umar, in another narration, he said, فَأَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَقُولْ هِيَ النَّخْلَةِ فَإِذَا أَنَا أَصْغَرَ الْقَوْمِ قَالُوا مَا هِيَ يَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ قَالَ هِيَ النَّخْلَةِ. So Abdullah ibn Umar, he said that I wanted to say that it is the date palm tree. He said, but I was the youngest person there. I was the smallest person there. He said, and I was too afraid to say anything. This is that shyness, that modesty, that when you have your young son with you and you're around a bunch of adult men, that they're watching. They are keen enough to know that this is not the appropriate place for me to say anything. They're just watching, they're observing. All right? They're watching, they're observing, and that's what they're supposed to do. When they're around men, they observe men and they watch closely. This is how men act. Right? So the Sahaba, they kept, trying to say what type of tree it was until eventually the Prophet ﷺ said, it's the date palm tree. So Abdullah ibn Umar said that when we were leaving, I was walking next to my father, Umar ibn al-Khattab. He said, فَقُلْتُ يَا أَبَتَ. Now this is a son having a father-son moment. Abdullah ibn Umar said that when we were leaving out from where we were, I walked over to my father and I said to him, Ya abata, O my father. He said, وَقَعَ فِي نَفْسِي أَنَّهَا نَخْلَةٌ. He said to his father, I knew it was the date palm tree. I knew it was the date palm tree. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu asked Abdullah ibn Umar, his son, he said, well, why didn't you say anything? And Abdullah ibn Umar said, because I was the youngest person there and I felt too shy to say anything. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, لَأَن تَكُنْ قُلْتَهُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ أَنْ يَكُونْ لِي كَذَا وَكَذَا وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ أَنْ يَكُونْ لِي حُمْرٌ النَّعَمْ. He said, for you to have said what it was would have been more dear to me than having red camels, or more dear to me than having this or that. I would have loved, basically, for my son to have got the answer right in front of a bunch of other men, because men take pride in that. It's like, yeah, that's my boy, that's my son, right? We take pride in that, right? To be around a bunch of men and for someone like the Prophet ﷺ to throw a question out there and that your son knows the answer, men, we take pride in that. But Abdullah ibn Umar said that I was too shy to say something because I was the youngest person there. It's not my place to say anything. I'm around elders, right? This was a level of respect there, all right? Which is another thing that we need to teach our boys, that when you're in the presence of adults, you're in the presence of men, then you act accordingly. You act accordingly. In today's time, you'll find that we have a young child amongst, a bunch of adults, and the young child is doing the most talking. The young child is doing all of the talking, right? The attention seeker. And, the men laugh, and, I personally would be embarrassed because as a young boy, you should know that when you're around adult men, that you act accordingly. You act accordingly. You understand? So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said to his son that it would have been more beloved to me for you to have answered the question than having this or having that. Meaning I would have loved for you to answer that question, because that would have given Umar a sense of pride, a sense of, accomplishment that, my son answered the question. In another hadith, we can see that this was common with the elders of the Sahaba to bring the young men around them. On the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he said, Kana Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu yudkhilani ma ashyakh Badr. Abdullah ibn Abbas, another young companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was Abbas's son. This was the first cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was also a young man during that time. Abdullah ibn Abbas was only 18 years old when the Prophet ﷺ died. So around the time that these incidents are happening, these young boys are like 15, 14, 15, right? They're young kids. Usama ibn Zayd, was 17 at the head of an army, 13, at the head of an army. These kids were young. They were young men. So Abdullah ibn Abbas, and this will be the last example, he said that Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu kana yudkhiluni ma'a ashyakh Badr. Ashyakh is the plural of shuyukh, old men. He said Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu used to bring me amongst the elders who participated in the battle of Badr. These are the older Sahaba, You know what I mean? These are the older companions that were there with the Prophet ﷺ from the very beginning. He said, and Umar used to bring me in the gatherings with the elders of the Sahaba, those who participated in the Battle of Badr. And كَأَنَّ بَعْضَهُمْ وَجَدَ فِي نَفْسِهِ. And it was as if some of the elders were uncomfortable with Umar bringing me around. And they would say to Umar, فَقَالَ لِمَا تُدْخِلْ هَذَا مَعْنَا وَلَنَا أَبْنَا مِثْلُهُ. And they would say to Umar, why are you bringing this young boy in our gatherings when we have children his age? Showing you here again, bringing young boys around them so that they can learn from the behavior of men. We learn through observational learning, modeling. That is how a man learns how to be a man, by being around men. Boys learn how to be men by being around men, not being around boys. So if you're a woman and you have a boy, right, you have a son, and you're looking for a role model for your child, don't marry a boy just like your son. Stop marrying boys. Stop marrying boys who sit around and play video games all day long. Stop marrying immature boys, right? When things get thick in a relationship, the first thing they want to do is run. Stop marrying boys who your son will most likely mature before your husband does. Stop marrying boys that are going to sit around and play video games with your son all day long and teach him nothing about the world. Teach him nothing about life. You understand? Stop marrying boys. Women, it's just so sad that you guys keep making the same mistakes. You keep making the same mistakes over and over again. You keep marrying boys, bringing boys, introducing your son to boys. Your son starts to have a lack of respect for you as his mother. The son is looking at you as the mother like, why you marry this guy? This guy only a few years older than I am, and he's way more immature. How does your son have a better job than your husband? Think about that. How's your son a graduate from college? Your son has a very good job, and you as his mother goes and marries someone who's not a graduate from college, doesn't have a good job, doesn't have a job at all. How you expect your son to have any respect for you as a woman? This is what we're teaching our boys. This is the standard that we're setting for them. He goes to college, gets a good job, and then his mom turns around and marries a boy. How is he supposed to have respect for you? So the Sahaba said to Umar, why are you bringing this young boy in the gatherings with us? We have children. We have children the same age as him. فقال عمر إنه من قد علمتم فدعاه ذات يوم فأدخله معهم فما رأيت أنه قد دعاني يومئذ إلا ليريهم يعني علمه. That Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that you all know Ibn Abbas, you all know him. All right? So why are you making an issue out of it? You all know him. So he called me, Abdullah bin Abbas said, Umar called me one day to be amongst the elders. He said, and I only saw that he called me to be amongst them because he wanted to show them how much knowledge I had, right? He wanted to show them that although I was young, I was a kid, and they were adults, I had more knowledge than they did. He said, so Umar asked them one day, ما تقولون في قوله تعالى إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح. Umar said one day amongst the elders, he said, what do you all know about the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ, that when the help of Allah comes and the victory. Surah An-Nasr. Surah An-Nasr. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. What do you all say about this ayat? So they all said that, they begin to speculate. Some of them said that this is Allah is telling us that Islam is going to be victorious. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make the religion, victorious. Allah's help is going to come. And they begin to speculate. And then Abdullah bin Abbas said, Umar turned to me, فَقَالَ لِي Akadhalika ya Ibn Abbas. And Umar said to me, "O Ibn Abbas, is what they're saying about this ayat true?" And Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, فَقُلْتُ لَا. Abdullah ibn Abbas said, "No, this is not correct." So then Umar said, فَمَا تَقُولُ? What do you say about these ayats? And Abdullah ibn Abbas said, فَقُلْتُ هُوَ قُرْبَ أَجْلِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Abdullah ibn Abbas said, these ayats, meaning Surah An-Nasr, means that the Prophet ﷺ is about to die. Subhanallah. At the time that Surah An-Nasr was revealed, none of the Sahaba knew that. But Abdullah ibn Abbas, he knew that. He asked the Sahaba, what do you all think about Surah An-Nasr? Give me the tafsir of this ayat, of these ayats. What do you think about this surah? So the Sahaba says, some of them said it means this, some of them said it means that. And then he turned to Abdullah ibn Abbas, the young person who they criticized Umar for bringing around them, right? They turned to Umar and they said, Umar turns to Ibn Abbas and says, what do you say about what they said? And Abdullah ibn Abbas said, nah, they're incorrect. So then Umar says, well, what do you say about this ayat? He said that these ayats mean that the Prophet ﷺ is about to die. And Umar said, مَا أَعْلَمُ مِنْهَا إِلَّا مَا تَقُولُ. He said, the only thing that I know about these ayahs is exactly what you said, meaning you're right. He gave him space wherein he could exercise the knowledge that he was learning. We exclude our young boys from the narrative on the premise that that we are here, but they, and so therefore they're not necessary. So as long as we are here, our boys are not necessary. And it's almost like the conversation that Ibn Abbas had with one of the other young boys in the community. He said, فَقَالَ لِي جَارِي هَلُمَّ نَسْأَلُ. Or قال Abdullah bin Abbas لِجَارِهِ هَلُمَّ نَسْأَلُ أَصْحَابَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَإِنَّهُمُ الْيَوْمِ كَثِيرٌ. Ibn Abbas, listen to this. And this is what we do to our sons. We, as the heads of the Islamic communities, the imams, the leaders, preachers, this is what we do to our boys. We think, so as long as we are here, they don't ever need to be in leadership positions because we are here. We never think about a time when we are not going to be here and they're going to need to be in positions of leadership. We never think about that. Ibn Abbas, he said to one of his friends as they were young, he said, come on, let's go and ask the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, let's go seek knowledge from them. Here's Ibn Abbas telling one of his young friends, let's go seek knowledge of the religion from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ who are still around. They are in droves, they are here in multitudes, they're still alive. Let's go seek knowledge. So the boy says to Ibn Abbas, وَعَجَبَ لَكَ يَا ابْنَ عَبَّاسِ أَتَرَى النَّاسِ يَحْتَاجُونَ إِلَيْكَ وَفِي النَّاسِ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم مَنْ تَرَى فقال ابن عباس فتركته وأقبلت على المسألة. Ibn Abbas, he said, I said to my friend, come on, let's go learn from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, because today they are in droves, they are here in multitudes, we can learn from them. He said, and the young boy turned to Ibn Abbas and said to him, amazing, do you ever think, Ibn Abbas, that people will ever be in need of you? Do you ever think that people will be in need of you when the companions of the Prophet ﷺ are always around? And Ibn Abbas said, وَتَرَكْتُهُ فَأَقْبَلْتُ عَلَى مَسْأَلَةٍ. Ibn Abbas said, I abandoned him, I left him, and I went to go seek knowledge. I went to go seek. When people start to shoot you down like that, you have to leave them. Nah. Whenever you decide that you're going to go do something good, all right, and the person is trying to turn you away from doing that good, then you have to understand what that person represents in your life. That person represents nothing. That person is going to pull you down, and that person represents mediocrity. They're not going to allow you to excel. And all of us has that one person in our lives that every single time we make a suggestion of doing something good, hey, let's go to make Umrah. Nah, I don't have the money. I can't do it. I'm broke. Hey, let's go to this lecture. Nah, I got something to do. Like, why are you going to lectures? Like, we've heard all of the lectures. We don't need to go any lectures. Let's go get married. No, I'm not ready to get married. I'm done with that marriage stuff. I saw what happened to my mother. I'm not ready. Every time you try to do something positive, this person is always there to give you 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't do it. This person is always there to give you 100 reasons why you shouldn't do it. Ibn Abbas said, let's go ask the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. There's so many of them today. Let's go seek knowledge from them. And the boy turns to Ibn Abbas and says, do you really think there will come a time when people will need you? The companions of the Prophet ﷺ are here, right? Why would you think that people will ever need you? Ibn Abbas said, فَتَرَقْتُهُ وَأَقْبَلْتُ عَلَى مَسْأَلَةٍ. So I abandoned him. I left him. I left him where he is. These type of people, you have to cut them off because they represent the mediocrity that you are trying to transcend. You understand? They represent the mediocrity that you are trying to transcend. And the moment you suggest trying to do something new, trying to do something different, trying to elevate your status, trying to level up, you'll have this person pulling you back down. Always. Always. So many of our children, they show very little interest in learning anything about the religion. All right. The Prophet ﷺ did not exclude the young men from the narrative. The goal of them learning is for them to teach. All right. The goal of them learning is to teach. Last narration, on the authority of Malik ibn Huwaydith, he said, Atayna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa nahnu shababa. Malik ibn Huwaydith, he said, we came one day to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa nahnu shababa, where we were young men, mutaqaribun, and we were all close in age. We were all young men, young teenagers, close in age. He said, فَأَقَمْنَا عِنْدَهُمْ 20 لَيْلَةً. He said, and we stayed with the Prophet ﷺ for 20 nights. 20 nights. We stayed with the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Atayna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa nahnu shababa. We came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when we were young men, young boys, 13, 14 years old. And we were all around the same age. فَأَقَمْنَا عِنْدَهُ 20 لَيْلَةً. And we stayed with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for 20 nights. وَكَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ رَحِيمًا رَفِيقًا فَظَنَّ أَنَّا قَدْ أَشْتَقْنَا أَهْلَنَا فَسَأْلَنَا عَمَّنْ تَرَكْنَا مِنْ أَهْلِنَا. The Prophet ﷺ, he was very merciful, very compassionate. And so when he saw these young men around him for the past 20 nights, he thought that maybe they were missing their families. So he asked them, who did you guys leave behind? Who are your families? You left behind your moms, your dads. You left the desert to come and be in Medina with me. And you've been here for almost 3 weeks. You've been here for 20 days. You've been here for almost 3 weeks. Who did you leave behind from your families? قَالَ فَأَخْبَرْنَاهُ. So they told him, we left behind our mothers, we left behind our family members. And the Prophet ﷺ said to the young men, إِرْجِئُوا إِلَىٰ أَهْلِكُمْ. Go back home to your families. You've been here long enough. You've been here with me for 3 weeks. إِرْجِئُوا إِلَىٰ أَهْلِكُمْ. Go home to your families. فَأَقِيمُوا فِيهِمْ. And go and stay with your families. وَعَلِّمُوهُمْ وَمُرُوهُمْ وَصَلُّوا الصَّلَاةِ كَذَا وَكَذَا فِي حِينِ كَذَا وَكَذَا. The Prophet ﷺ said, go home to your families and stay there with your families and teach them, and command them to pray and pray with them the salah at this time and this time, and he began to identify to them the times for the salah. The point that I'm making is that the Prophet ﷺ, when this group of young men came to stay with the Prophet ﷺ for 3 weeks, the Prophet noticed that they were around him. They were not necessarily from Medina. They were around him. And the Prophet was concerned that maybe your enthusiasm for learning is causing you to be neglectful of your families. If you were the ones to go to the well and get the water for your mother, if you were the ones to, go and milk, the goats, if you were the ones to go, hunting, if you were the ones to do all of this for your families, you've been with me for 3 weeks. It's time to go home. He told them, go home to your families and go teach them what you learned from me. That is the goal of our children being around us, of learning, is to give them the place where they can learn and teach and educate. If we're not giving, or we're constantly teaching our children, but we're not providing them the space where they can exercise what they're learning, then we are rendering our children useless and irrelevant. And many Muslim children, especially the boys in the Islamic community, they feel useless. They feel irrelevant. They don't matter. There's no use for them. So they go out into the world and they go find something else to get involved with, because they feel like, I'm not needed in the Islamic community. I went to school, I graduated with a master's degree in this science or that science. I come back to the Islamic community, they don't have any need for me. The imam is the end all be all. The imam is everything. You have some communities where the imam is literally everything. So many of our children find that in the Islamic community, they are useless. They are irrelevant. They don't matter. So there's no need for them to come back to the Muslim community. For what? To pray? Yeah, I can pray anywhere. Why do I need to come back to this community to pray? I can pray wherever I am. But as far as bringing my skill set back to the Islamic community, for what? You got the imam. The imam is the end all be all. He teaches all the classes. He marries all the women, right? He does everything. He's the end all be all, right? MashaAllah, tabarakallah. So what's the sense in our boys learning? Sad that even some of the students of knowledge get treated the same exact way. You're absolutely right. Students of knowledge who go overseas and study, we even encourage them. As a community, we find out a young brother in our community is going overseas to study. We're all gung-ho. We're happy about it. MashaAllah. Go home and learn and come back so you can teach. And then when he comes back, the imam puts him in a box, gives him a shelf. He shelves him, right? It's like what, certain, singers and musicians, they get shelved. You sign with this particular company and you never hear from them again. We put you on the shelf. We'll put your record out. We'll put your album out next year. We'll put your album out next year. And we keep pushing it year after year after year until the person just dies off. We shelf you. Student of knowledge graduates with a degree from the prestigious Islamic university, right? Comes back home to the community, and now the imam becomes his rival, right? The imam becomes his adversary, because the imam doesn't want to relinquish his position. And the same kid that you encouraged to go and study, where was he coming back to teach? Where's he coming back to teach? He can't come back to this community to teach because you already have an imam. And the imam teaches all the classes. And there's no more classes going on without the imam say so. The imam might let you teach a little bit of Arabic here, maybe give you a class here, until that student eventually realizes that if I stay in this community, I am never going to amount to anything. And I'm going to return back to being a lay person just like I was before I left. So what does the student do? He goes out and he goes and finds another place where he can exercise what he learned. Because going back to his own community is a non-factor. That's not going to happen. This theme has... This story, this movie has played out so many times. So many times. Including with myself. I could not go back to my community and teach. I had to go find refuge somewhere else. So here I am in Delaware. Here I am in South Jersey. teaching other communities that welcome what I bring to the table. And alhamdulillah, I don't have a problem with that. It's easier for me. But to go back to where I'm from and try to teach is too much red tape. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. Too much red tape. Too many chiefs. Right? Too many chiefs. And that's the problem. And some of the same people were the people who encouraged me to go study to begin with. It's like, oh, you're going to the Islamic University? MashaAllah. But never did I know when I graduated that I was not going to have a place to come home to and teach in my own community. Never did I know that. Never did I realize that. I didn't realize at the time. And then when I got home and I saw all the red tape, then it dawned on me that I will never be successful here. I would never have the space to teach what I learned here until I have to move abroad. I have to go other places, and I have to take my show on the road. And that particular is a theme that is, it's a theme that has played out with so many different communities, because we feel like, yeah, you can go learn, but you can't teach, right? What is the sense in learning if you're not going to be able to teach? What is the sense in learning? I mean, obviously, to learn, to become a better servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to purify your intentions, to get better in your worship, yes. But you pay zakat on your knowledge by teaching it. You pay zakat on your knowledge by teaching it. And if you don't have anyone to teach it to, then eventually you become like a layperson. Right? Passing the torch is just something that, that we just say. There's no such thing as passing the torch. It's just something that sounds good. It makes the person who says it, right, sound like he's humble. I'm passing the torch. But you're not really passing the torch. We say that. But there is no such thing as passing the torch in our communities. It's prying the torch from the imam's hand on his deathbed. That's what it is. So we'll stop here. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. If there were any questions, Periscope, I'll start it again for questions and answers, inshallah.